Welcome to the Hue Seth Show, where we discuss impact, philanthropy, startups, innovation, and venture capital. Tune in weekly for exclusive insights from investors, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders from around the world. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Hue Seth Show. We have a very special guest joining us today, Juliana Whitney, an OG in the cannabis space. And in today's EP, we're going to be discussing how to legally register a cannabis business. But it's very important that we discuss some things before doing that, because what's the significance of even registering a cannabis business if there aren't any trends leading up to saying this is a solid investment or this is where the future is headed, right? So we're going to cover a bit of that beforehand. And then from there, Juliana is blessing us here with her knowledge and wisdom, step by step, how to go through the process. And to my understanding, Juliana, you actually have a startup, you have a business that you've put together to help those aspiring entrepreneurs that are interested in entering the space. So to me, I think that is just very lovely of you to do. And I think that all those who are listening right now and those who are ambitious and looking forward to getting and tapping into the space, this EP here is literally all you're going to need, along with leaf sheets. So let's dive into that. So who is Juliana Whitney, outside of the fact that you're an OG in the cannabis space? Who is Juliana Whitney? What are you working on? If you could give us a quick synopsis on leaf sheets and can strategy, I'll really appreciate that. And then we can progress with our conversation.
Who is Juliana Whitney? I am a delight and a blessing to everyone whose life I'm in. And I am an entrepreneur and a free spirit and wildly ambitious and destined to take over the world. I'm from Vegas. I've got my MBA in new venture development. I love business so much. Every little part of it. I think it's the coolest, most creative endeavor I've ever ventured into in my entire life. I always say I'm like an artist, like Van Gogh, except for with business. Like this is legitimately how I feel when people are like, why? I'll get asked, why do you do startups? Why are you an entrepreneur? Why don't you just work for someone? I'm like, that's like telling Van Gogh to go work for Michael's craft store. Like, you've got to let an artist be an artist. You know what I mean? Like, we've got to be able to create, even if our art is not great. So that's who I am, and that's what I'm up to. And I wound up in the cannabis space. Hue, as you said. And you wanted to know about leaf sheets, right?
Yes, leaf sheets and can strategies, because I know leaf sheets I see leaf sheets, Mrs. Van Gogh. I see leaf sheets to be a sense of your heart for the people, in the fact that, it's one thing with this aspirations to take over, and it's another thing to not be malicious as you're doing so, and to actually be someone who's pouring back into the ecosystem and extending a sense of ladder to those who are looking to progress themselves, right? Which is what this world really needs. So I see leaf sheets to be an embodiment of that. And then can strategy, even though you're doing your thing there, but it's your consulting side, right? So if you don't mind giving us more details on the two entities and how they came about.
Great. Yeah, so when I say takeover, I envision that as having a large influence that includes uplifting a ton of other people to increase their influence also. So at any time I'm like, I'm going to take this over, I'm going to rock this, I'm going to dominate this, it's really not just me. It's like, I'm going to push energy so much and like influence this thing so much that all of these other people are going to benefit and all of this other stuff is going to flourish because of that, And that is originally where Can Strategy came to be, because I thought, okay, I've got all of these visions for the cannabis industry, which is arguably a new industry. If we go based on when it wasn't legal, then it's been around forever. But if we go based on once it's been written, into any kind of allowable legal form, then it's new. It's a little baby, brand new seedling. And I thought, wow, how cool to have a new industry, to have it with a product that people are emotionally and psychologically connected to, influenced by, motivated by. How much could we do at this point in society when there's all this push toward better cultures, better treatment of employees, better leaders, just better business practices? How do we do things in a way where we still profit, but also are better to people and better to the world? And wow, there's this industry that feels like it's perfectly suited for this point in time, right? And Can Strategy I made so I could help work with investors and entrepreneurs with capital to start the greatest companies in this industry, to start them up in any brand new state, to get them going, to develop them over time. And my ideal with Can is to really help those people build the greatest companies in the space and have longevity in order to create that influence I was talking about in the long run. And as I was doing that, I would run into a bunch of entrepreneurs that maybe weren't so capitalized and couldn't afford the consulting firm or the super fancy law firm, all of those entities. And I'm a startup entrepreneur, I'm a lean entrepreneur, and I can't just be like, oh, you guys are screwed. You can't get in this industry and I'm not going to help you, And I thought, okay, well, this stuff is, I believe people like to find things that are difficult and complex. This is not everybody. People have a tendency to. I don't know that they like to do this. Find things that are difficult and complex, and they feel a sense of like ego and pride around knowing how to do the thing. And because of that, they would rather hold on to the value of them knowing how to do that thing and get people to pay them for it, rather than just simplify it so it's not so difficult and not so complex for other people to access on their own. And I figured, okay, if I can take these really difficult and complex things and, skills and strategies that you need to know in order to build something in this space, succeed in this space, I've been blessed to have the brain that is naturally inclined to this for whatever reason, which means that if I believe I really understand it, that means I can simplify it, because that's how you know it. And that's where Leaf Sheets came to be. I went to my business partner, Nick. He wasn't my business partner until Leaf Sheets. And I was telling him this idea, essentially. It's like LegalZoom. It's like LegalZoom at the moment, and it's going to be like a baby child of LegalZoom and Indeed and a couple other platforms, all niche specific, all geared toward making cannabis business easy, not only for newcomers, but also for the largest companies in the space. How do we simplify these things? How do we make life in this space happier? Which I know sounds so hippie, but that's the truth. How do you do this business, and enjoy it? Because that's why we're on planet Earth.
Yeah.
So I don't know why it's glorified to hate things. Only if it's really hard is this worth something. No, but imagine if you love it, or it's at least easier. So make it easier both for the owners, but then also for all the employees all the way through the whole thing. That's where Leaf Sheets came to be. And we started out with, right now where we're at with the standard operating procedures that are hard to come by, hard to find, hard to learn about. You cannot find them. You cannot learn about them unless you pay a consultant or a lawyer to get them. So we put those into a product that's accessible, that you still pay for, you still buy it, but for much less than if you had to hire a consultant. And we provide answers to the most frequent questions, to regulatory questions. We've got best standards, best practices, articles basically to guide people through different pieces of it, do-it-yourself guides to help them figure out how to navigate through the regulations, putting their plans together as they're getting started. To really make it accessible for people that really are people like me, especially when I first started, which I think is why you said that's where my heart came into it. It was like the heart for the people, for the startup entrepreneur, but also the heart for the industry and the heart for business, because I believe in startup entrepreneurs. I think they're some of the most valuable people on planet Earth. They're the grittiest, intelligent, gritty, creative, innovative, passionate, dedicated. And to keep those people out over a couple $100,000, that's ridiculous. That is a massive loss. That's a disproportionate loss. So yeah, that's where Leaf Sheets came from.
Yeah, I recently had a podcast recording actually to where I spoke with JR,
Okay.
who's the founder of Accountable Cards, and in this EP he mentioned to me how, what is it, about 210 million people are financially crippled in the US. And that was startling to me because I'm like, wow, this is the greatest country in the world right now, in my personal opinion, that is. And yet there are so many individuals who don't even have enough money. Like if one catastrophic event or something goes a bit wayward, they don't have money to even make it past the week or the month, and that to me is just barnacles, right? Um, so
Wonderful.
I really love what it is that you're doing, because not only does this serve the majority of people, but what it also does is give them the opportunity to have a vision. It gives them an opportunity to have a chance to participate in wealth creation and doing something more, right? So I think that it's amazing what's happening. And so hats off to you. Right now.
You're like, that's silly, but
Right. You mentioned also before we dive into the other things, you mentioned also investors earlier. And I recently had a conversation with Ben York, and I've made an intro between the two of you, but Ben York, an investor, I had a conversation with him on the Skill Upstream podcast recently. I'm going to share the link in the bottom of this EP here, and we just discussed the investment sequence and how to approach investors and things along those lines. So for those who are looking and have a startup, I definitely recommend you checking out that EP. But I want to know from you, an OG again, why would anyone want to even enter the cannabis space, especially for those who are already making money in cannabis? Why would they want to legally go through the ropes of registering a business?
yeah.
What are trends that's leading up to this point that is saying, yo, the future is here, and it's important that you get prepared and position yourself now? What are some trends that are showing and indicating this?
Well, people who would want to go legal with it who aren't currently, a lot of them don't want to go legal because it sucks in terms of taxes. They're like, I don't want to do it. They don't want to.
I hear you.
But for them, for those who do, the way I put it is this: it's like, imagine if you were at the start of, well, imagine if you're around during alcohol prohibition, and you got the chance to start the first whiskey brand, the first vodka brand, the first wine brand, whatever. It's this really, really cool opportunity that, yeah, sure, the regulations are intense. Yes, the taxation is weird. Things are brand new. That's how it goes. It's this amazing opportunity to be willing to jump in during this time when everyone's figuring things out. The government itself is figuring out how to regulate this thing and create brands that last and that are meaningful and that customers are in love with and seek out and relate to and come back to over and over again. And then for you as a business, as the regulatory environment, the business environment improves, and you already have this customer dynamic that exists and also keeps improving, Like, just imagine the upward trajectory of those things together. That's a reason to start now rather than later. And that is also a reason for anyone doing it that's not on the legal side to come on over, because yes, that switch sucks, but you're also gonna keep yourself out of the game if you keep wanting to play on the sidelines, essentially, which is skirting, on the law. And why do that, really? So that's why I tell people to get in the industry now. That's why I tell, investors, I'm like, it's absolutely worth it at this moment. On the retail side, let's say, the retail side's interesting to me. It's actually one of my favorite sides. I love the brand building piece of products and all of that. And then with the retail side, I love literally every single step of the way on that piece. I think it's so cool. Like, create a national chain of stores that sell this great product. And then over time, if you get the right people on your side, kind of see how you can influence what these stores become, what they're allowed to do. Who you're an acquisition target for. There's just, you know what I mean? There's so much fun to it. And there's so much like long-term strategy to the whole thing. It's like the most fun game ever. And you can make a bunch of money doing it if you do it right. You think it through. What were your other questions about it? Did I answer that?
Yeah. You definitely did. Now, I've been looking forward to this part right here. And I'm super appreciative of you taking this opportunity or taking this time to extend this opportunity to us and break down the sequence of someone basically who has no knowledge of how to start a cannabis business.
Okay.
And going through the steps of basically registering their business.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to hearing this. And again, for those listening, she's giving us the game right now. You better go about and share this video and make sure you reach out to her, hit her with the Cash App and everything. So I just show her some love. No, I'm just playing. But yeah, the floor is yours.
Okay. How to go about this process. If you're doing it on your own, obviously on your own and with leaf sheets, then what you do is you, one, make sure you're in a state where it's legal. Step one. Step two, decide what business type that you want to start. So if you want to do cultivation, production, dispensary, and then sometimes there's third-party transportation, sometimes there's testing labs, that kind of thing, which are like, those are really intense to do, the labs, but hey, if that's what you want to go for it. And then you look up the regulations for your state. That's something that you can do on Leaf Sheets. So you'd go to leafsheets.com/states, click on your state. There you'll find, for most of the states, there'll be articles telling you like different answers, how things work. And for every state, there's links to your state regulations, which you can go to directly through the Leaf Sheets site and then download those if possible. Figure out what business type you want. And then you have to understand what the application process looks like. So in some states, like Oklahoma, for instance, there's rolling application process. I do believe they stalled it for the moment because they realized they were giving out way too many licenses. But there's states where you can, on an ongoing basis, apply for a license. And it's not just limited to a specific point of time. And a lot of times the states where you can apply on an ongoing basis, the application process is also much simpler up front. Or you're in a state like Nevada or Ohio, where the application process is only open for a 6-week period every once in a while. And by every once in a while, I mean like every 5 years. So at least to date, that's been their time frames. So if that's the case, then you're in a whole other world. You've got to figure out what style of application process you're going to be dealing with, and then look into what the application requires, meaning that you would go to Either Leaf Sheets will have it. We'll have it as one of the articles about your state, and we'll do like step by step. Here's everything you need. If we don't have that yet for your state, we will. But where you can find it is in the regulations. There's always a piece that's about the application itself that will outline essentially, applicants will need this information about their ownership teams, security plan, waste management plan, inventory control plan, sales, training, all these things. You want to map out what all of those plans are that you need, and then what specific things that they say that you're going to have to demonstrate in those plans. This is where it's better if we've already made a guide for you, because it is legalese, but to understand what they're asking for, translate that into regular language so like you can really get a grasp on what it is that you're going for there. And then from that point, on Leaf Sheets, we have all the plans. So you could go and say, okay, so I need my, security plan, inventory control, staffing and training, advertising and signage, all, labor and employment, and purchase all of those plans. All of them come with a DIY guide specific to the plan. So it matches up, just each individual plan has its own individual DIY guide. And then there's a master DIY guide that we have that's downloadable on there. That will walk you through how to navigate regulations, how to reword them to put them into
how much is the DIY?
The DIY guide is free $99.
Free $99. Oh my. Okay, continue.
And so it'll walk you through that, how to look at all of the regulations, reword them, integrate them into the standard operating procedures that you buy with Leaf Sheets, and so that you can customize your plans to your state and get them all ready. And then what you're also going to want to do is customize them to your business. So our standard operating procedures have won licenses in some of the most competitive states in the country. They're really good and solid. You need to make them into specifically for your business. A lot of it will be the same, so there's really not that much that needs to be customized. But let's say you're doing cultivation. Maybe you're using a different kind of soil, or maybe the temperature of the room is different than what we put in there. So that kind of stuff you'll want to customize. Maybe your hiring practice is a little different than we wrote in there, so you'll want to customize that kind of thing. We also have added an option actually that you can just pay Leaf Sheets to make it state specific if we don't have state specific ones for your state, because eventually we will have them for all of them. Right now we have them for Nevada and Mississippi, and we're going to have them for New York. So that's another option if you don't want to do the customization. It's just, we'll do it. You can just pay us and we'll do it. And during all that time, that's kind of your document piece, right? And you'll be registering for an LLC with your state board, just like a regular business, that kind of thing. And then you'll want to be putting your team together. So it'll be you. You'll want someone who has cannabis experience, ideally in some kind of form. If you can get team members who have financial experience, compliance experience, legal experience, security experience, medical, whatever, agricultural, any kind of experience on your team that will strengthen the claim that you're a great team to own one of these cannabis companies, and that you're a team that's going to succeed. Not only is good to get a license in a state, but also is good for your investors to know that your business is going to be in good hands and has a chance of success. And as you're doing that, you have to have all of their resumes, all of their bios. You'll all have to get background checks and fingerprinted and all of those things. You'll be making your org chart. You'll be writing your business plan. You'll be wanting to look for funding during all of this. So as you're building your team, definitely be looking for investors. Also, if some of your team members are going to be investors, look into places that do loans for startups. We have one of those that we partner with at Leaf Sheets that we'll refer people to. So really all the same pieces as putting any other kind of business together, but it's got to be really geared toward the way that cannabis businesses operate. If you're doing, people love to do this part first, but I say cool if it's in your vision from the start, but get all your other ducks in a row, and then you can really start focusing on your things like your branding and naming. And but when you do focus on it, really focus on it. Don't just throw that stuff together, because that's where your money is made. Your money is made in what does your store look like, and how are your employees trained, and how do they treat people, and where are you located? And so that stuff needs a lot of thought too. Just get like those really the more boring pieces but necessary, building blocks down first. And then there's always, this is another thing that Leaf Sheets does. We'll have a list of vendors for people that they can work with that they'll need. So you'll need your security team, real estate agents, construction, that kind of thing. And you'll want to get those people in place. If you need, this is so much, I'm just like rambling, so I hope people can follow this because I don't have it written out.
They can always pause, take notes. You know what I mean?
I'm like, and then, but so every state does things in different order. So some states will say, before you apply, you have to have your property locked in. We need proof that you have a lease. We need proof you have a property, and we need you to have your floor plans already done and submit all of that to us. Then there's places that are like, we don't need you to have a property, but we do need floor plans just so we can see that you know what you're going to be building. And then there's other places that are like, yes, we need your property and that you can lease it, but we don't need your floor. It's like all over the place. So regardless though, you will need a good real estate agent. You will want to find your location. The primary difference will be if you actually have to lock that location in before you apply or not. And so that's something to look for in the regulations when you're looking at the requirements for the application. Your real estate agent, I always say to have them be cannabis experienced if you can find someone who is in your state, because there will be rules about your zoning, about distancing from churches and schools and parks and things like that. And you'll want someone who's familiar with those rules as they're finding your location. And then always double check, even though they're going to check, don't just trust it. Just also double check that your locations follow the rules. One of the number one biggest things I tell people about their location, since just like with any other storefront on the retail side, location is everything. Do not just select a location because it fits the distance and it fits the zoning. It needs to fit the specs for a retailer to succeed. That people are still people. Yes, they like this product, but they really have no interest in driving totally out of their way or to some weird, awkward spot just to get cannabis. They're not interested in it. So a lot of companies, I don't want to say a lot of companies, newbies will take locations just because it fits the regulatory specs, and they figure, oh, customers, they'll come here, of course. And no, they don't. Like, they might at first, and eventually those places just start struggling, when it's like, if you just were located in a different spot, you could be doing all things exactly the same and at least be doing a lot better. So make sure, pay attention to that piece. And what else? Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say, yeah, that's it, but basically, once you see what the application requires, you get all those pieces, you have all these pieces going, and you're really just like checking off the boxes. For some of the states, we do have those boxes listed out for you, and it's the forms. There's forms. There's a lot of getting forms notarized and signed, getting things approved by local authorities. If there's ever a case where you have to get something approved by a local, let's say a township or something, you could make that very difficult, or you could literally just Google, Swans Island Township Board, whatever, go on their website, contact them, and figure out how to do the thing. If you're doing it on your own, it's going to take grit. It's going to take reaching out to people. It's going to take being like, oh no, I don't know anyone at the city, and figuring out how to know someone at the city, figure out how to get the information, and it's doable. It is work, but the cool thing is that Leaf Sheets makes it into a lot less work because we have all of the standard operating procedures. So the thing that you're not hearing me say is write all of your standard operating procedures. Learn how to write. You don't have to do any of that piece. You don't have to pay a consultant $150,000. You just have to buy the sheets from Leaf Sheets and then do all of these other pieces. And also you'll have some of your startup budget for the other professionals that you'll need for your real estate agent, for even for a lawyer, let's say. So one of our clients, what they did, they're actually very funded. It's funny because when we started Leaf Sheets, I was like, this is for the startup entrepreneur. They have maybe $50,000, maybe $100,000 to do as kind of a startup budget, whatever. Maybe even if they only have $20,000, that let's make it so they can at least get through the application piece. And then from that point, you've got to figure out the rest of the business piece. Or let's say you have investors, but your investors don't want to pay for the application piece. So you have 20 grand to get the application piece done, but they're going to give you proof of funding. So all you need is Leaf Sheets to put in the work, get that stuff together. They give you $3 million in proof of funds for your application, but they don't actually have to put anything on the line as your investors until you win. So it's like, let's build that thing for that kind of entrepreneur, who's like really piecing something together. And then one of our first customers was a company with like $30 million. And they just did not want to work with a consultant. They were like, no, we have a law firm. We feel like we know what we're doing. We don't want to work with a consultant. We just need the standard operating procedures. And so they bought every standard operating procedure from Leaf Sheets for their cultivation, for their production, and for their dispensaries. And they won the first ever licenses in the state of Mississippi. They just didn't want to work with a consultant. So that's another way to do it too, is if you do have money, like for a lawyer, you have a lawyer there, just here's all the Leaf Sheets, give them to your lawyer, they'll customize them and like guide you through the process as they were. You do your pieces, your lawyer will guide you through. You don't need a consultant as an additional expense, and you're rocking and rolling, Yeah, so anyways, then you do the whole application, you turn it in, you wait. Depending on your state, you could wait 6 months, you could wait a month, but you always wait a certain amount of time to get your license. In some states, if you mess up, they'll let you know you mess up and give you an opportunity to fix it. In some states, they won't, and you'll just suddenly be told you didn't get it or you did get it, and you're just waiting to hear. And then once you're licensed, you're rocking and rolling, and you have to do the startup process, and we also have guides for that.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. No, I'm seriously just
structure that at all. So that was just like a brain dump.
No, that's very good. I mean, ultimately, like I said, this isn't like a live video or anything where we're at some conference. This is something that everyone that's listening right now could pause, replay, digest, And man, normally we try to keep these EPs at a certain time, but I just think we have to do a little bit more justice in the sense of I'm sure there's some Q&As that our audience would have, right? And some of those that I'm thinking of, well, because this even comes to whether you're, let's say, even private equity sectors like M&A. If you're looking to purchase a business, one of the preliminary things that is of high necessity is a team, right? If it's venture capital, there are three things that investors tend to pay keen attention to, which would be timing. The preliminary reasons businesses fail in this space is because of timing, number one. And then number two, team. Right. And then number three, you have and then number three, you have, I would say, the product, right? So those three things, right? So the technology itself not being adequate or easily replicable. Now, I wanted to ask a question here pertaining to the team here, because I see that Leaf Sheet targets a certain demographic. And even if you're going to get in this space, you have to be at a certain place in life anyways, right? But team. I want to ask you, what are some tips you may have for those who once you mention team, their hearts started to race, right? Oh my God, where do I find these people? How do I get them to want to work and see the vision? So first of all, what are some tips that you will have pertaining to this?
Okay. Tap in. Number one, if you have that feeling of desperation of, oh shit, where do I find these people? Do not let that make you actually desperate and just take anybody that fits the, technical boxes of that human. Anybody. This isn't just like, smaller startup entrepreneurs. I have seen like well-established, like philanthropists, doctors, lawyers, business people who were so desperate to get their licenses that they put teams together just so they had all the pieces they needed. Years later, lawsuits. This is not a few times. This is so common. Years later, none of them like each other. They didn't work well together. They didn't have the same vision. They didn't have the same understanding of how the business was going to operate. They inevitably wind up in lawsuits. They wind up just wanting out of the business at all costs. So I'm telling you, if you're a billionaire or you've got
and we have some billionaires listening, by the way.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, we know. Or you've got tens of thousands of dollars, right now to give your dream a try. Think your team through. So I would say first, really make a list. And I'm going to keep saying, just go to Leaf Sheets. Literally, we have I've dumped so much information in there about here's how you do this piece. This is things people don't think about. Look at it. Part of it is the team. And it's, think through, okay, this is the kind of business I'm starting. Here's the ideal team for that business that would make me feel like my company is going to succeed, would make investors feel like my company is going to succeed, and would make my company succeed. Here's the people that I need. So if that was a dispensary, I would say, what are the skills there? You want someone who's great with finance and that no matter what, because it's a business, but also because it's cannabis and you have to very well track your financials and utilize them to the best ability. You're going to want someone maybe who knows retail, or someone who's, operated a large scale, high traffic.
Where do you find these people?
Okay. So many places. One, just think through the people that sometimes you forget how many people and what those people know, and who those people know. So one thing is that just do kind of a remember who you know. And if none of them fit the bill for any of these different positions that you want to fill or team members that you desire to have, will any of them know the person? Do you think that they do, or do you know that they do know the person? Ask for that introduction. Tell them why. Get them familiar with your project. Get them on board. If you're still in the case that nope, there's nobody, then then you're in a tough situation. And why haven't you been networking more? It would really be my question.
We need you to put together a group, man. It's long overdue. Put a group together.
Me?
Yeah, you put a group together.
Just a group?
A group, a networking group.
A networking group.
Charge like $19 a month or something very low ticket.
Yeah.
I'm not trying. I'm just playing. Don't come in with the pitchforks. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm just being goofy, but.
I know. I'm I so would everything about that. Every time someone tells me to do something like that, I'm let me get an assistant, and my assistant would love to manage that. That's all I think of when I think of groups, because I know they take so much heart and time. I would want it to be so good. Let me get someone.
It doesn't. I think everything in life is going to evolve, but I see a necessity here, definitely, just through this conversation. And you're at the intersection of and at the inception of this space. Literally, you're a pioneer, and something just keeps telling me in my belly that when it comes to, because one thing about this space and my understanding about the cannabis space is that this is a restricted industry. When you're looking at traditional lending, this is a not only high risk but restricted altogether. And with that being said, you're not correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not going to be able to get a traditional bank loan to fund a cannabis business, right?
True.
So with that being said, we're now looking at investors coming in, right? So in a situation like that, a team, investors, again, I just mentioned timing, team, right? And then the product itself.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a team, it's not going to incentivize institutional investors or some sort of angel or whatnot to want to give you any capital, right?
Yeah.
So I see a great necessity of networking, right? And it's one thing to utilize LinkedIn because that's a strategy, but at the end of the day, investors don't want random people reaching out to them. The best strategy for investors is introduction, as you alluded to earlier. So who do
Yeah.
you know? Who do they know? Who can make an introduction so that I now have a warm intro to this investor to where I can pitch my idea versus a cold approach, which seldomly works. Um, it's just some thoughts of mine, but I'm not trying to tell you what to do. It's
No.
just.
And I think with building the team too, so
Mhm.
like looking at your, the network that you've built so far, who do they know? All of that. If that really doesn't get you anywhere, or it's always the case too that you're like, what do they call it? Is there such thing as a black duck? A black duckling? Ugly duckling. I'm like, what is it called?
Yeah, ugly duckling. Yep, sure. Yeah. I know.
Like you're the outstander, the outlier, you're the one in your community who is into this thing that no one else is into, because there is still stigma around it. There
Right.
just is, like pretty heavily actually. Especially once you start asking people to get their professional reputations on the line and their money on the line, and then suddenly their stigma about it comes out a little more. So if that's really the case, then join, like you said, networking groups, or really on LinkedIn, like
Are there any
build really.
networking groups you can think of right now?
There are cannabis specific groups.
Okay.
So
On
there's,
Discord and LinkedIn and
yeah,
Facebook and
there's,
stuff. Right.
and there's subreddits. There's Reddits about it. And also, obviously, Leaf Shoots on TikTok is a place. We've actually really had people connect on our TikTok, like in our comments section.
Yeah, I checked out a couple of your videos. The split second I spent on TikTok, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've seen some of your videos. Yeah, you're very consistent on TikTok, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Well, you should see what's coming next for Leaf Sheets, for what, like, we're doing our raise,
Yeah.
as I told you.
Ooh.
And what Leaf Sheets is going to be, and what, like, the very next steps that are coming. Everything that I'm doing is in the name of that and knowing what's coming. And TikTok and the audience that it has, and the audience it can build, has something to do with that. And I've already seen like all this proof via all of the people messaging. The question that they have the most like feeds directly into one of the pieces that we're building. And I'm like, yes. I'm so stoked about it. But yeah, like if anything, I would say, and this is going to tap into my, if you were to ever sit with me, Hue, in person and talk to me about, business, and it's like, we're by a campfire on this island that I'm on right now, and there's like wine and stars and friends with us, and this is what we're talking about, I would inevitably go into my more energetic, I guess spiritual, but like my energetic all is one view and vision about business, how it works, how it impacts the world, and how to approach it. And that would include that a lot of times when we have to do something important in business, people can become their most human selves, questioning everything, piecing everything apart as though it's separate. How do I do this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, all separately? If you just hop in and realize that it's like, this is all so accessible, that if the question you're trying to hack is, where do I find my team? What is a team though? A team is humans. A team is simply humans with skills who you work well with and you all share a common goal. That's all you're looking for. Then you've made it less, where's my perfect team? And you've made it more, where do I find humans with skills who share certain interests that I do? That's all you're looking for at that point. And then go from there and work it back. If you don't have all three of those, first just find humans. Like, go places, meet people, go to coffee shops. I met my business partner at a coffee shop. You know, it's like, it's simple. All of it is.
You're lucky. I tend to only meet network marketers at coffee shops.
Well, you're one of the wrong coffee shops, okay? You're not going to the right ones at all.
Yeah, well, I'm also now on the West Coast, so.
That's true. But yeah, so that's what I say. Like, all of it is, yes, complex. It takes intelligence and, you know, knowledge, resources, all of these things. Also, a lot of it at the very, very core is wildly simple. If you'll let it be simple, if you don't overcomplicate it, it happens with more ease than trying to stress yourself out about where do I find the perfect people. Like, okay, if you need a doctor, let's say, like, you must know a doctor, or you must be able to find some kind of, like, I don't know, medical group or something. Like, there's so many ways to meet people. Literally the parents of your friends. Like, one of my biggest clients ever, they were the parents of my friends. Like, when I first started, you know, and they were doctors, or I've acted as a connector. Even, like, I had a whole group of doctors and philanthropists who needed a group of cannabis people. The cannabis people needed a group of people with money. And I just made. I just made them a match in heaven. And now they own 3 dispensaries together. Like, you just have to find the people. Just find people. I don't know how to tell you this, Hugh. I don't know how to say it any simpler.
No, you said enough. And I may have made a joke about network marketers earlier. I once was a network marketer myself. And during that journey, and I recommend a lot of young people actually, yeah, it's a pretty solid path, especially and who knows what could come. And I've built teams through there, but what I've learned through that experience actually is the importance of credibility, and you really start to, and also the importance of networking, because you really start to learn, like, oh my goodness, like I'm either a very credible individual or I've just been very shitty over the years. But then from there you're able to recognize and then fix whatever. So I really appreciate that. And really, when we're talking about business, we're talking about an entrepreneur. The definition in itself is somebody that takes greater than normal risk. And part of that too, it comes with hard work if you're taking greater than normal risk. So this isn't even with Leaf Sheets giving you the tools and helping you forward with this vision. There still has to be work. Investors are not going to just give money to someone who doesn't have a work ethic. So at the end of the day, all that is still necessary. And you said enough. So if you're listening to this, go on Facebook, go on LinkedIn, go on Instagram, not Instagram, but go on Facebook, LinkedIn, and even Twitter, and find groups. Discord, right? Discord is another place, or even Clubhouse. Find groups that are discussing cannabis and be in that room, giving input. Don't just go there and try to see what you can get or take from people. Folks are not interested in parasites, but go and see how you can also give value, give insights, see how you can help others. And in return, things happen. So, hey, Juliana, we have to, I think I'll take you up on this. But come again?
Can I say one more thing to do?
Go ahead.
I know I've said so many things, but I'm just trying to be helpful.
You said enough. Like this is amazing. Like, you haven't said too much. You said just the right amount. Yeah.
I would say also look up cannabis events. So there's like a lot of conferences. There's conferences across the country. There's groups like the National Cannabis Industry Association. They'll have events. There's some other groups like that will have events in all different states.
Nice.
And go to those. Just go to those, especially if you're in a brand new state, like a newly legalized state. Everyone there is going to be very similar to you. They're all going to be new. They're all going to be excited. They're all going to be trying to figure out what to do next. and you'll be getting it on the ground floor in your state. So, okay, that's
And
my
if
last.
you've done some reading before, if you watch videos like this, spend some time on Leaf Sheets, you're going there equipped with insights, right? Which separates you from people who haven't done the work, who haven't done the research. So now your conversation sounds a lot different. So now if you are engaging in a conversation with an investor, you're able to than everyone else who have not done the work, right? So
Yes.
that's definitely something there. Do the work and watch
That's
this
important.
video about a million times, share it with your network and everything. Look,
Yeah.
Juliana, this is probably the longest EP I've recorded in such a while.
Can I just make it a little longer?
Okay, go ahead.
All right. I'm like, wait, they need to know. I don't know who
Go
they
ahead.
are.
No,
But
throw it out there. Throw it out there.
okay. So also the point you just made, like, okay, reading on leaf sheets, really doing the work, so key, because when I meet people in new states, especially, yes, like the cannabis industry is so exciting. And so everyone's on this like vibe of, oh my gosh, this is going to be the biggest ever. This is so cool. We're changing the world. We're helping people. This is healing the everything, all that. Cool. Great. But I would not invest in that in a million years, because it doesn't sound like you know what you're saying. Like, it sounds like you don't even know what you're getting into, if that's all you're saying to me. Like, you've not even looked into what you're even approaching at this time, So cool if you have all of those beliefs. That's so good. And that's like, will be your passion and belief in the product, like the project and the product. But read the regulations, read, the structured things. And as part of your pitch and your conversation, when you go to events, you're meeting people, like, have an opinion on how the regulations are written, have an opinion on the impact that those have on the way businesses will have to operate. What's your opinion on how those regulations will hold businesses back? How would you approach that to fix that, to make that better for your company? Like, develop those ideas and understandings, because that's what's going to make you more of over time, build credibility, and in the moment even build a sense of like, okay, you at least are really looking at this, and not just as something that's super exciting, but
Right.
like,
And even like a step further, researching who, like, if it's at an event, maybe
yeah,
there be keynote speakers, maybe there'll be investors. Research all the investors that are in the space, and every event you're going to, research those investors. What have they invested in? What are they looking for? Learn about them, right? See how you can serve them. In serving, we in return get served ourselves. When it's all about us, and what can I get, nothing comes from that. People senses that energy and is very parasitic. Mutualism is definitely the way to go. So do your research. You're an entrepreneur now. You're getting well equipped. So,
yeah,
this is awesome. And with what you were talking about earlier, hey, we're the essence of business, in a sense.
yeah,
Hey, we can have a conversation on that. You just let me know. I think that would be a cool conversation to
sure.
have on the podcast here. So,
Oh, I'm here for it. I'm anyone who will listen, because some people, they start being like, this girl is nuts.
oh, you're not more nuts than me. Trust me. If you think you're crazy, I'm 10x that.
Anyone who's ever drawn to me, I have people drawn to me all the time.
Yeah, yeah,
Who
yeah.
want to work for me, who want to just know me,
Mm,
like all these things, They're like, I don't know what it is that's different about you.
mm.
And I'm like, I'll tell you if you want to listen.
Oh,
It's because,
I think we could vibe on that. Something very, what's the word? As textural. I'm keeping this in the EP, by the way. As textural.
existential,
No, with the aliens and stuff. What's the word?
extraterrestrial.
That's the word. I'm not editing this out either. Yeah, that's the word. With my Liberian accent, sometimes there's things that have to do with R, whatever it
Yeah,
is. Like, for the
definitely.
longest, I had issues pronouncing world. Even now, I have to really brace myself.
World.
World. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah, I hear
yeah.
it.
So some words are just so difficult. But hey, and I'm not the smartest guy. I don't have a college degree. I barely even made it through. So, anyways, it's been a pleasure. It's been a
I know, I'm so funny.
No, you are, but I'm just like, sometimes you have to laugh at yourself, right? Hey, you don't have to be very smart to do these things. So, hey, Juliana, it's been a pleasure. I think this EP here so valuable for anyone who's checking it out. This is the longest I've recorded in such a long time. So, thank you for giving us the time today.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, you got me at a good moment. I'm on an island. So
Yeah.
all I want to do, I'm full of sunshine and nature and like good vibes. Who wants to know what? I'm here for it.
Yeah. This video here. I have a feeling and a thought that is going to be timeless. So thank you for allowing me to participate in the history of cannabis. So thank you.
Thank you, Hue.
I'm eternally grateful for your continued support along this amazing journey. For more episodes like these, please like, share, subscribe, and click the bell for upcoming videos.